humbling for me, a poor boy from Hawke's Bay, to follow behind the second most sexiest woman in Parliament, but I will do my best, Mr. Speaker. And I rise in support of the financial services. Well, you've got to ask yourself, don't you, when Bill English is number 3, the validity of that poll, I must admit. So you cannot believe every poll you read. Jacinda Ardern must be number 1, but there's no doubt about that. But let's get on to the substance of this bill. It is worth noting, my friend, that this bill is designed to further tighten the rules and regulations around financial advisors. So I say congratulations to the Honourable Leanne Dalzell for her excellent work as Minister of Commerce of the last government and now as Chair of the Commerce Select Committee. It is her work that has got us here today. Let's not beat around the bush and let's be clear about that point. But why is this bill and the overall tightening of regulations governing financial advisors important? Because quite simply, it is right for the people of New Zealand. Because there are many, many sad, sad stories of ordinary New Zealanders who have worked incredibly hard all their lives, only to have someone masquerading as a financial advisor provide them with advice that cost them their savings. Mr. Speaker, there is a fundamental difference between groups of people who have lost their money in the spate of very public finance company collapses. There are savers and there are investors. Investors are those who have or should have knowledge of risk and who seek advice from different sources to make decisions after weighing up the odds. What they didn't assess as a risk was the negligent behaviour of people who had no knowledge except that the more they sold, the better off they were, conflicted in the extreme. Savers, however, are people who have put their hard-earned dollars, which they've built up over 20, 30, 40, 50 years of working hard and paying their taxes, into the hands of unscrupulous operators only to see their life savings vanish. And with their savings went their dreams of a retirement with dignity, a retirement spent enjoying the fruits of their labour. They saw what should have been this reality cruelly taken away. Savers do not necessarily price risk like investors do. They pay others to assess risk and expect competency, diligence and honesty. Was that too much to expect, Mr. Speaker? No, it wasn't. Investors understand that risk equals return, whereas savers, mums and dads, grandfathers and grandmothers who lost all their money in the financial sector were not pricing risk. They were putting their money away ready for their retirement, for their grandchildren's education. This travesty has resulted in an increase in ill health, a decrease in the well-being of a huge cohort of New Zealanders. Last year, Mr. Speaker, I spoke in this House of at least 2 people who had committed suicide because they had lost their life savings. I spoke of the tremendous hardship and mental anguish of those New Zealanders. I spoke of the tremendous loss of wealth from the nation's bottom line, over $5 billion. I cannot imagine, sir, being 65 and losing my life savings. I cannot imagine the feeling of utter devastation. No wonder ill health has plagued these unfortunate Kiwis. So we did something about it and passed the Financial Advisors Act and the Financial Service Providers Registration and Dispute Resolution Act. This current bill under debate makes minor proposals which are machinery in nature, but this doesn't make it any less important to protecting the most vulnerable in our society. This bill is important for other reasons too, Mr. Speaker. One of the problems in this country, Mr. Speaker, is the do-it-yourself or do-it-DIY attitude or mentality to investment in savings that many of us have. We think we know how to earn our own optimal return on our savings without seeking advice from those who are expected to know markets and different investment options. The level of investment in the housing market is evidence of this trend because we all know how to buy a house, don't we? Now we are told that as a nation we have to invest in the productive economy, buy into stocks, invest in capital markets, put our savings into areas that will lift the economic growth of New Zealand. And I agree with this advice, Mr. Speaker. But the problem that has been recognised by this bill and the 2 others I mentioned beforehand is that the level and the quality of advice from financial advisors has been of such a poor quality, and I know we're talking about the finance company sector, that many New Zealanders have now had their worst fears realised, that no one can be trusted with their money. The stereotypes and generalisations that people had about financial advisors were realised. And I feel sorry for those in the sector who acted with competence and always advised their clients in the best interest, because they were tainted with the same brush as those who advised that a balanced portfolio meant investment in 5 different finance companies. However, not all that acted in an unscrupulous manner, Mr. Speaker, were those who operated out of the back of a tin shed. There were those in glass towers who also acted or gave advice that was devious and self-serving as anywhere. This bill will, I am hopeful, be another step in the process of rebuilding the confidence of ordinary New Zealanders in the investment advice sector, because it is exactly what is needed. If we are to grow our country, it won't be because this current government is giving tax cuts to the top 9%, earning the top marginal rate, and very little, if anything, to the other 91% who aren't. It's actually interesting, Mr. Speaker. The New Zealand Herald did a poll on Saturday which said that only 22% believe that the proposed tax increases to GST, so the government can give tax cuts to those most privileged in our society, will be good for economic growth. Actually, did you know, Mr. Speaker, that in the Napier electorate, over 75% of people earn under $40,000 and only 5% earn over $70,000? So 3 out of every 4 people in the Napier electorate got no tax cut last year, but this year will get an increase in GST to pay for tax cuts for the top 5%. That's not fair in any language, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying... So was that... Oh, sorry. As I was saying, these proposed tax cuts won't do anything for economic growth, Mr. Speaker. Herald readers know this. As mentioned, Moore actually said the proposed cuts were unfair, then said they were fair. And do you know why they won't do anything for economic growth? Well, Mr. Speaker, the government obviously doesn't, because they are based on outdated and disproven economic theory. Friedman and his supply-side free market approach to macroeconomic theory died with the downfall of the Thatcher and the Reagan governments. It's rather interesting that other countries that we're very, very fond of comparing ourselves to, like Australia, have adopted a Keynesian approach, Mr. Power, where they provide tax relief to the most vulnerable, not the most affluent. Anyway, this bill is absolutely necessary, Mr. Speaker, because what it does is start the process of rebuilding confidence of ordinary Kiwis in the financial advisory market. Kiwis need to know that when they take their hard-earned money to a financial advisor, they are going to get independent, competent advice from a person who will walk them through all the risks and benefits in a transparent and meaningful way. The past was the Wild West. A city full of cowboys is not a good place for the vast majority of Kiwis to be. As a collective, we need to ensure that people are encouraged to diversify their portfolios into the productive economy, that they are encouraged to save and to invest in a prudent manner. Anything that helps ensure this process, we are duty-bound to support. There is a long way to go, Mr. Power, before the industry has full confidence of the investing and saving public again. But this, Mr. Speaker, along with Leanne Dalzell's 2 acts, is at least a start. Thank you.
I call Jonathan Young.
Mr. Speaker, this